Nintendo has a tendency to link particular elements on each track to a particular character. Mario has chain jumps tied down to a stud. Courses associated with Bowser are sure to have some fire-based elements. And Donkey Kong, well, Donkey Kong has a weird habit of putting a number of hairpin tones on his tracks, almost as a stylized signature that's baked into the course. Now in DK Summit, or Snowboard Cross depending on where you live, the starting point at the top of the back-to-back hairpin tones is much higher altitude-wise than the bottom, meaning good players will just drive straight across, resulting in what we call the single and the double. Today's topic, we're covering a few methods on how to clear this chasm. First up, the standard single. This is one of the very first shortcuts any player learns, as you'll even see some beginners online using this. The main thing to look out for when doing the single is turning around on the fence. The problem that most people have is they enter the single too tight, so instead of the fence pushing you out like it's supposed to, it takes the 50-50 and shoots you backward. So simple solution, start a little wider before the single. Also keep in mind not to press the hop button after you land from the single, as sometimes the topography will bounce you right back off the track. Before we move on to the slightly more complicated stuff, I want to show you how to do the DKS single with a kart. It's done by drifting fairly wide, then release the drift without getting the mini turbo, so release the A button before the alt trigger. Then just ride off like so. In some cases when you land you'll have to drift left, which will make your vehicle slide out and around the second chasm, avoiding the fall. The reason I wanted to mention this method was, even though I said this was for karts, bikers can learn from this as well. I recently used this method in the December 2019 Mugi FFA, where everyone got shocked right before the double area. Then using this method I went from 8th to 3rd. I apologize however, as stupid Arc wasn't recording or streaming his POV. Okay, it's time to finally get down to the fun stuff, the double. There are a few different methods depending on the vehicle and situation, but the objective is to slow down enough so you don't overshoot the small strip of road in between the single and the double, while maintaining enough speed to clear the second chasm. The way I like to do it is by pulsating my A button right before the single. I'm aware some people prefer to just slow down, that also works, there's nothing wrong with that. Then nosedive and drift left to clear the gap. The most common problem when doing this is with a combo like Funky Flame, beginners tend to slow down too much, falling into the first chasm. Commonly what we call doing a Justin. How many of you guys are old enough to remember that? Anyway, or even if they do make it, they slow down to the point where Funky doesn't have enough speed to drift, meaning that you can't do the double. This is one of the few reasons why we nosedive. If it gives us more room to accelerate up for the second cut. I should also mention you should aim for the upward slope, which acts as a pseudo ramp, which will hopefully take you over. This is the most common way of doing the double, but depending on your vehicle of choice, there are a few other methods that you should be aware of. First is the Spindrift. If you watched a few DKS BKTs, you'll see that they use this method, which is done by drifting right and clipping the rear of the bike over the first lip, which will shoot you down, simulating the nosedive. The rest is the same, but you save a little bit of time with this method because you don't slow down as much right before the single compared to the normal method. Now even though we call it the Spindrift method, this is actually the same method we use when we drive karts. First you drift wide at the top of the single, then bleed just enough speed that way you land in the center, while still being able to input a left drift. Then, hold that left drift all the way through. This will take a lot of practice, trial and error, so if you plan to play karts, take some time to seriously sit down and practice this. For outside drifting bikes, you hop drift over the first chasm, then use that momentum to shoot you over the double. Now even though I found out this method was for outside bikes after the fact, I actually learned it from someone who used the Sneakster, so I see it more as a preference thing. Finally, there's one final strat that I personally did not have enough time to get footage for, but I would be doing a great disservice if I did not at least mention it. This shortcut, dubbed the Jimmy, is done by slowing down just enough before the single, so your rear tire can clip the lip of the double, then spin drift to the left. This is an incredibly difficult trick that's only really used for time trials, even though I won't be surprised if some maniacs decide to attempt this online. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please don't forget that we have a like button. It helps out a lot more than you might know. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment down below, hit me up on Twitch, or join the Discord server, where you could get real-time help from me or some of the other librarian assistants. Once again, thanks for watching, and happy racing.